Welcome. So welcome to our virtual Prep to Teach for the graphic design. So we'll do a few introductions. So I'm Beth Hudspeth. I think some of you on the call I have already met in consultations, and I'm part of the provider development team. So I support the providers, in particular the schools, with the Cert qualifications for the graphic design, the creative design and production, and the engineering. And I support with the onboarding and training and CPD of the qualifications. And then I'm also joined here by Emma. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Emma.
Hello, everybody. I'm Emma Harrington, Subject Specialist in Craft and Design at NCFE. And for those of you who have not heard of NCFE before, we're an educational charity and awarding association that specialises in vocational education. So at post-16, this includes our study programmes, T-levels, and our 14 to 16 offer, which in this case is Cert Technical Awards. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. And yeah, looking forward to speaking to you all throughout the presentation.
Thanks, Emma. So this webinar, it will provide you a brief overview of the Cert Technical Award in Graphic Design, and we'll be covering the qualification structure and assessment. We will explore current planning and formative assessment, where you'll have the opportunity to look at your pupils' knowledge journey and create a roadmap that will help you have a better understanding of how and when to teach the indicative content, as well as develop some formative assessment activities. We will be sharing a summary of all our resources and support that are available at NCFE to support you and your pupils. And before giving you the opportunity to create some teaching and learning activities of your own that can help you deliver the content in an active and engaging way. As a group, you'll also learn from one another, and this is a chance for you to share best practice with each other, and what you're currently using in the classroom, get ideas off each other. And lastly, there will be an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have about the qualification. And you can do this throughout on the chat. And as I said before, at the end, we'll stop the recording and have an open question session. Also, just to make it clear, we're aware that our quality assurance team have recently postponed sessions which covered how to model the Model 5 Certs, how they're assessed, and the rearranged dates for these have not been shared with us yet. So please be aware that this is not a part of this training. So we aren't able to answer any questions about assessment regulations. The rearranged dates will be out before the end of the academic year. And well before the information is needed for about the assessment for year 2. So this webinar is very much about prep to teach for year 1, and then there'll be this the next session for the prep to teach year 2, which will cover questions regarding the NEA. So we're going to start with a poll to see a quick poll to see how confident you're feeling with the delivery of the Cert graphic design. So I'll just launch the poll. So 1 being not so confident and 10 being very confident. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you now with the delivery of the Cert qualification? So it might be that some of you are brand new and not delivering till September. Some of you may have already started. Great, so we've got a good mixture. We've got some 1 to 2s, some 3 to 4s. Majority is 5 to 6, some 7 to 8. Great. So hopefully by the end of the webinar, we'll get those of you in the 1 to 2 moved up, and then maybe those of you in the 5 to 6 moved up to the 7 to 8, and we might even get some 9 to 10s. So thanks, everyone. So the first activity we're going to do is the KWL activity. So this is where we're going to cover what you already know about the Certs and what you would like to learn. And this is within your workbook. And then after the session, you can fill in what you did learn. So using your participant handbook, if you could fill in the 2 boxes of what you already know about the VCERT and what you'd like to know today. And we'll give you a few minutes to fill this in, but also while you're filling that in, if you could also post in the chat one thing you want to know and one thing you already know and one thing you want to learn. So if you could pop in your workbook what you already know, what you want to learn, and then post in the chat one thing you already know and one thing you want to learn.
Can see lots of questions coming through, which is great. And perhaps we'll cover these as we progress through the presentation. Obviously, if we're not, then we will allocate time to cover that at the end, for sure.
Yeah, we'll have a look while I'm waiting for my.
Yeah.
Right, I'm into the email. So Saffron's asking if the NEA must incorporate content areas 1 to 6, so we'll cover that throughout. Got the email. And we've got, I know about the fundamentals of graphic design. And what you'd like to know is this will be for students with SEN learners. Okay. The written exam also incorporates elements from content 1 to 6. Whether there are any exam papers coming out as schools have several progress assessment points, and we could do with these. Okay, we can answer that throughout. We've also got, I'm very familiar with the previous graphic design course, but want to learn how best to deliver the new course, as I've seen all the resources that are available, but not confident on how they would be used by students and staff. So hopefully we'll cover that throughout. Saffron, you want to learn how to effectively teach all 6 content areas within the short time frame given, and how to condense the lessons provided by NCFE, as I'm struggling to get the students to cover all the lessons and bookwork to cover the content expected. So we're going to go through sort of planning your year. And then general overview, but some units still not resourced, or grade description, and how best to structure the content areas throughout the year. Great, so hopefully we'll answer these throughout the webinar, and then again we can answer them at the end. So we'll move on to the qualification structure. So Emma, I'll hand over to you.
Lovely, thanks, Beth. So if you've taught the level 1 to technical award in graphic design before, this will be familiar to you, but you'll notice it's been refreshed. So a little overview. The GLH are 139 hours and includes 120 hours for delivery, 17 hours 30 minutes for the NEA, and 1 hour 30 minutes for the EA. So the TQT is 153 hours, which includes homework that you might set and/or independent learning if you've got the facility to set that. The NEA has a 60% weighting and the EA has a 40% weighting. The content assessed in the EA and the NEA will be sampled across the full breadth of the qualification. So overall, the qualification grades are level 1 pass through to a distinction, and the same for level 2, though we have a distinction star. So I'll just let you have a little look at that slide.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
No, go for
away.
it. Your turn, actually. Curriculum planning.
Okay, so we're now going to look at curriculum planning in more detail, and I know that's something that's come up in the questions of what you'd like to know. So what your learner journey is going to look like and why. So when considering curriculum planning, this quote really stands out, and it's a great reference when considering your curriculum design and teaching and learning sequencing. So the delivery of what you need to teach from the qual spec does not need to be, nor was it intended to be, delivered linear. So space practice or distributed practice, which Dylan refers to, means space in retrieval and recall of knowledge over a period of time rather than cram practice regularly revisiting prior learned material. And this is a really important part of effective planning curriculum, providing opportunity for pupils to forget and relearn supports the transfer of knowledge to their long-term memory.
So if we look at curriculum planning holistically and consider all of the content areas for graphic design, let's just explore for a minute the blocked approach versus the interleaving and how that spaced learning and retrieval can support delivery of the new model vCert. So block study, which involves studying a topic in sequence before moving on to another, may have suited previous vCert models, which featured end of unit assessments. However, the information isn't being transferred to long-term memory, which needs to be the primary focus. So with our new model of vCert, such that students no longer actually sit end of unit assessments, the ability to retain and recall large pieces of information has become even more important, and the science of learning evidences that the interleaving is the most effective strategy. So the example on the screen explores how content can be mapped, first of all using a blocked approach compared to the interleaved approach. So this is an example. So yeah, starting sequentially or studying blocks in a different order is the simple way of saying that, and coming back and revisiting certain content areas and I guess layering those content areas with different knowledges. So in the chat, can you let us know, it would be really helpful to us and to each other, which approach were you planning? So were you planning to teach it content area by area, or are you thinking about the natural links and a more interleaving model?
And see the chat tap bubbles going.
So interleaving refers to mixing up the subjects and the topics. So it gives you greater flexibility. So that may answer some of the questions that have come through in the chat.
Haven't got a group next year, so haven't looked at it yet. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just getting grips ready for September 24. Also great, this
Sure.
session will really support you, and we can have a look. And we've also got content area by area, mainly as didn't have time to link at the start of this course.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can understand, cases for both of those. And it, there's flexibility in how you deliver. There's not like a set you have to. With the interleaving, I feel that it gives greater flexibility for you to come back and revisit, and also give students more time to connect their learning.
So we were undecided and wondered if interleaving was a better way to fit all the content areas into that short time frame. Yeah, that's a good way to fit them in by interleaving. And we've also got new to NCFE, so using the provided resources currently until all have been released to adapt in the future.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good way of trialing it, isn't it, Beth? You sort of run with the resources, but they are fully amendable, adaptable, and you can differentiate them between levels and abilities, which allows a greater holistic approach.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've got Hannah saying block study, but she likes the idea of interleaving and adapt for future groups. Great.
And from what we've heard from different providers, certainly on the other model as well, is having a project approach, delivering a particular brief where you can amalgamate different content areas together. Certainly the research, which could interleave between a number of different content areas and, of course, be revisited. But we'll come on to a lot more of these subject points, won't we, Beth, as we progress?
Yeah, we will.
So would you like to talk about the learner journey?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be aware of the qualification content which is within your curriculum, and you'll be planning your order of delivery, but it's also important to remember the whole learner journey, and this includes the knowledge, skills and behaviours that learners need to be successful in their choice of chosen industry area. So we've added here some areas which you might find important and include. The list is not exhaustive, and it needs to be individualised for each learner. So subject specific, English and maths, digital skills, work industry skills, communication skills, analytical and evaluation skills, and other would be problem solving, adaptability, proactivity, objectively and professionalism, and so on. So it's about the whole learner journey as well, the qualification.
So a quick recap on the content areas. So for the whole of the qualification for graphic design, it's broken down into 6 content areas. So it's 1 unit with 6 content areas within it. And what I can do, niftily lift. Oh, well done. Look at that.
I've just
Beth's
posted on my head.
yeah. Woohoo.
I've posted
Brilliant.
it in the chat.
Great. Thank you. That's the link to the spec as it is, so you've got that at your fingertips. So it's also one thing I just wanted to say is for each of the content areas, it lists each area and what's to be covered with the criteria, but also at the end of the document there is really good teaching guidance to support you in how you could deliver and how you could break down the teaching delivery into projects. Again, that's also supported with the resources that we provide to you.
Thanks.
So I guess that moves on to delivery model, Beth.
Yeah, so this is a visual of the structure of the new V-certs, and I think it really helps for us as visual learners to see it in this format. We did cover the structure more in the Prep to Teach Part 1, and that video will be available on YouTube soon for you to view, and that's the sort of going over the V-certs as a whole, whereas this Prep to Teach is for the graphic design. But you can see from this structure that year 1 is about delivering that content area, those content areas. And then in year 2, the brief is released in September, but doesn't necessarily have to be delivered in September. And our recommendation is to deliver the NEA brief from January. So in that September to December time, you have time to recap your learners after the summer break. I know when I used to teach, I used to seem to have, forgotten everything over that 6 weeks holiday. So revisit the content areas. You might even want to do the mock NEA if you haven't yet done that in year 1. So use that time up to the December to deliver further content areas, and then you have that NEA window from January to April, and all work must be assessed, IV'd and uploaded to the portal for the 30th of April. And that's when a sample will be moderated, and then the exam assessment will happen May due time. So it's just good to see a visual of the new qualification, and those of you who've maybe delivered the old model will see the difference.
Thanks, Beth. What's quite nice about this slide is it's, I guess, one-stop shop. You've got the model that Beth just talked about. On the right, you've got the content areas, and then some elements to think about in terms of themes for possible interleaving content areas. So really, interleaving the content areas is based upon the idea of that learning journey that embeds the knowledge and skills through sequencing the curriculum. Pupils are required to combine elements of their learning and show accumulated knowledge and understanding across the qualification content. So a synoptic assessment enables your pupils to evidence their capabilities to integrate and apply their knowledge, understanding of skills gained with breadth and depth in context. It's therefore essential when you're planning and preparing for teaching and delivery that these interdependencies and links build across the content of the qualification, and they're highlighted and reinforced. So in a nutshell, you can take a synoptic approach across the qualification to give your learners the best chance of achieving. Through combining the content and developing this holistic connection, your students will be able to demonstrate and evidence their full knowledge and understanding of their subject within graphic design and industry. Just let you have a look at that slide, particularly in the sort of thought bubble areas, thinking about, are there any common themes? So if you look at each of the content areas, there will be common themes there, whether it's research or practical work or experimentation. How can you link forward and back and vice versa between different elements and enable students to have more than one opportunity to strengthen and demonstrate their skills? There we go. So this slide is, I guess, the overview or the summary of the NEA tasks required for graphic design, including the marks to be awarded for each section. The key point to note here is that when you're considering your learning journey and sequencing your curriculum, the content areas need to be continually linked to the NEA and the tasks. It's also worth considering how your learner journey link to external assessment. So if you have a look at all the different tasks, you can see what assessment skill it's actually assessing, whether it's initial design ideas, which you can see is a big chunk, 3 hours, 12 marks. Development, again, 3 hours, 28 marks. Reviewing, planning, production, presentation, and evaluation. They're all the skills that you would be teaching your students throughout qualification. So the NEA is that opportunity for learners to really, I guess, showcase their design, development, review, planning, production, presentation, and evaluation.
Thanks, Emma. So we're now going to get our thinking hats on and we're going to start doing activity. So what we'd like you to think about is how you could sequence the content and why. So consider if you need to teach a content area in its entirety before moving on. Which areas of the indicative content linked? Are there any common themes? Can you link forward and link back? How can you embed the knowledge? How can you embed the skills? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a roadmap on the Jamboard. So has everyone managed to open the Jamboard? So looking at the Jamboard, looking at the content area, how could you deliver these content areas in a roadmap format for your curriculum? And if you haven't used Jamboard before, you have a sticky note here and you click on it and then you can write. So you might want to deliver 1 and 2 together, linking the components of a graphic design and work of a graphic design. You might deliver them side by side. We'll just spend about 5 minutes thinking about the content areas, how you could sequence in them for your learner journey. And I can see we've got people have joined. So it might be that you link 3, 4, 5 as a project where you've got the brief, the development, and then the production. 2 and 6. So we've got graphic designers linked with design, present and promote graphic design work. Yeah, that's a good link as well. And that links back to that interleaving and, you know, the question that we had of how to fit all the content area in over that year. One and 4, so we've got components of a graphic design linked with plan and development and experimentation. 3 and 4, so requirements of a graphic design brief, plan and development and experimentation. Great, thanks everyone. So few ideas there of the ways that you could sequence the content. But we've got three standalone. So 3 requirements of a graphic design brief. So lots of different ways that we can link those content areas together. I'll just drag the Jamboard off and we'll come back to that. So within your workbook, you have a plan, do, review activity. And for each activity that we're going to cover, so we're covering 4 activities in this Prep to Teach. So in your plan, do, review, what have you already done for activity 1? And that's the sequence in your curriculum. It might be that you already have it in place. Today you might want to review it and look at the interleaving. And by next week, and then by September, you will, well, hopefully we'll all be ready, running to go. So in your plan, do, review in your workbook for activity 1 related to sequencing the content in your curriculum, what have you already done? What would you like to achieve by today, next week and by September? So I'll just give you a few minutes to fill that in. I've just got a question in the chat. So do I take it that interleaving is embedded in the PowerPoint schema work format for year 1 then? Sorry, I had to step away for 5 minutes. Apologies. I only scanned through. So the interleaving approach is that the resources will be still released. They'll still be released in that 1, 2, 3, 4, but it might be that you switch in between the 2. Great. Right, so we'll move on, but do keep referring back to that plan, do review of what you've already done, what you want to do today, next week, and by September. So we're now going to move on to activity 2. So for this activity, we'd like you to think about the teaching and learning activities or tasks that you can enable you to teach the content in an active way for your pupils. So we're going to use the Jamboard again on page 3 and again with the sticky notes to record your answers in different content areas. I'll just pull up the Jamboard. So for activity 2, active teaching. So how would you deliver components of a graphic design, how work of graphic designers, requirements of a graphic design brief? How would you actively teach the planning, development and experimentation, graphic design production? And how would you actively teach design, present and promote graphic design work? And some of you who are already delivering may have ideas of how you're going to do this. So that's on page 3, active teaching.
Might be an idea to start with common links, the first sort of things that come to your mind really about making those connections between 1 or 2 and 6 or 1 and 3, 1 and 2. Might it be guest speakers showing their portfolios of graphic work? So that might be content section number 2, and then it links clearly to number 6, where learners have to present their work. Well, that's nice. We've got some sticky notes in. That makes it visual. Great stuff.
So we've got an list of existing examples through mind map sticky notes. Great, yeah. We do. I used to love a post-it when I was teaching. You got any other ideas of how we could teach these areas through active teaching? So responding to a brief, analyse many different briefs and break down the elements, ask them how they would approach them and what they could design. Yep. Very much in that creative subject, you know, having a brief and following the brief like it is in the industry, the clients. Design and make inspired by particular designer, old style. Yep.
Also allowing learners to have, so there's some really good examples there. So allowing learners, once they've seen the different briefs and broken them down into the different sector areas of graphics, allowing the students to choose a discipline that they're drawn to, that they may want to specialize in or have more of an interest in, whether it's products or packaging. So in that planning, development and experimentation phase, also overlapping into production.
So we've got using CAD, Adobe, Illustrator, and having a brief to meet. Yep.
Yeah, that's really important, isn't it? Having a tight brief to meet, as sort of emulates what happens in that sector. You know, what really happens, of giving the students a taste of what it's like to work as a graphic designer in that area.
Great, thanks everyone. So this Jamboard is yours for you to share as a group, and this, you know, will stay there. So add to it after. Keep this together for you to use. Right, so I'll just drag the Jamboard out the way while we move on to the next activity. So I hope you found that useful and got some takeaways to each, you know, from each other and ideas for your classroom. So leading on from activity 2, we're now going to share best practice, such as resources and ideas that can enhance effective practice in and out of your classroom. So using Jamboard page 4, let us know what resources you currently use or what you have within your centre. So how do you use them? Is there opportunity outside the session to share resources with each other? So there's some examples on the slide. So it could be guest speakers. So sharing ideas and resources. So there's some examples already. Guest speakers, examples of graphic design in everyday life, and you could. We've got Adobe Illustrator examples to work with. Laptop, Adobe Suite, Photoshop. When you're showing your learners examples of graphic design work, do you use physical, you know, objects like periodicals, books, or do you use online resources, or is it a mix of both? When it comes to packaging, what sort of physical resources do you have linked to graphic design? Do you have a good school library with a good range of books? Some schools do, some schools don't.
I think it's, if you've got the different sectors, so types of graphic work, section 2, yeah, is thinking about how might you inform your learners about the different types of graphic and illustration work, packaging, magazine, advertising, etc. So if you've got great resources, then fantastic. But for example, your school may not have a particularly well-stocked library of books. So how else could you encourage learning in that area? So might it be studio visits? Or if you can't physically get to a studio to look at particular work, could that then turn into a guest speaker or an online guest speaker? Obviously, the internet, physical resources are always great for students to see, that and actually handle.
Yeah, we've got bringing magazines, newspapers, leaflets from home. Yeah, that's good because then learners are bringing what they like, what their style is.
Good for home learning as well,
yeah.
isn't it?
What we've got, library in my own room, not many books in the school library. Yeah, I used to keep my own books in when I was teaching the class. Yeah. Keep looking out for example and keep boxes, folders of resources. Oh yeah, I used to love my folders of resources. Yep, it's all down to me. They only teach you graphics. Yeah.
That's a nice. Local colleges, because most local colleges will deliver graphic design, on a foundation course or a degree. So actually doing some links there with students and student mentoring on those courses is a great idea. Also going to exhibitions.
Yeah.
Can't always rely on that, but the pop-ups and what have you.
And we've got here building a collection of magazines, leaflets and brochures, because a lot of students don't have them anymore. No, everything's online now, isn't it? Even exhibitions are online, magazines are online. So yeah,
that's really positive, because in your hour lesson, witnessing, or not witnessing, that's not the right word, visiting different online exhibitions or little YouTubes of artists. Yeah, great. You're looking at some of the older school, hand rendered lettering, Neville Brody, people like that. Looking at some of their archive work, Pinterest.
Yeah, we've got letting students know about free design software they can use and experiment online. Yep.
Right.
Canva's a favourite of mine. And yeah, it is a shame that students never use magazines and books and rely on Google. Oh, I know. I remember those days with my learners, and I used to go, just look at the book, just look at the magazine. But yeah. Great, thanks everyone. So again, keep using this Jamboard. This is for you to use together. So again, remember to revisit your plan, do, review. So we'll just take a few moments. So looking at what everyone else's resources that they're using, is that giving you any ideas? What you already have, what you'd like to add in your classroom? Is there anything you'd like to try out? So something you'd like to get in place by next week, or your target for September? So that was activity 3. So we've just done activity 2 and 3. So is there anything from those activities, if you add to your workbook, what you already have, what you might do by the end of today, which could be write down what was on the Jamboard next week, start gathering more packaging or reminding your learners to gather more packaging, and then September, what we do. So we'll just take a few moments for you to complete your plan, do, review. Okay, so while you're completing your plan, do, review of the activities, what you might take forward, I'll just cover the teaching and learning materials. And I know some of you will be familiar with these already, but those of you who are brand new to VCERTs and planning to deliver starting this September or next September. So there are 3 classroom packs, and these include schemes of work, and these are in digital and editable format, and they contain ready to go teaching and learning materials with everything you need to deliver the VCERTs effectively. And there was also comprehensive workbooks for to complete, and these are alongside a scheme of work, and they include independent study tasks, classroom-based activities to recap and assess learning, and you can use these as homework or flip learning opportunities, whatever you decide. And the workbooks also contain learner roundups, which will be a short formative assessment for your pupil to assess their knowledge. And these are similar to the question types. So they'll have the multiple choice question, the short answer, the extended response question, and that's in the EA exam. But these are editable, so if you felt like you wanted to add more images or more content, that can be added. That's the teaching and learning materials that are available at NCFE. So we're now going to take a closer look at formative assessment. So let's recap back to that quote we shared previously, but explore practice testing and how this links to formative assessment and preparing your learners for the EA and the NEA. So in context of the curriculum planning and design and mapping that core content knowledge and understanding effectively allows the overlap and naturally holistic links alongside carefully considered space practice and well-designed retrieval and testing. And it's an excellent formative assessment opportunity for you as a practitioner, whilst also helping to prepare your pupils for the summative assessment in the core exams for the exam papers. And research suggests that practice testing at regular intervals can help prepare students for exams which will reduce anxiety as they are used to retrieving knowledge on a regular basis. So it's important that there is a variety of methods of formative assessment, which is contextualized and takes place on a regular basis. It's also important to have a look both at feedback, focus on past performance, but also feed forward, focus on the development in the future. So formative assessment helps the development of wider skills, knowledge, competencies, and confidence, and enhances their employability skills, which links to the learner journey explored earlier. As well as gain knowledge developed, students are aware of their skills and how to develop those. So to support you in preparation of your delivery in Year 10, we're going to spend the next part of this session looking at ways you can formally assess. So on the screen now, you can see a range of formative assessment methods. Is there any that you already use? So if you'd like to post in the chat, so do you have discussions, debates, presentations? Do you use any online? Kahoot, Slido, Google Forms? So if you could just post in the chat any of the formative assessment that you may already use. Did you do quizzes? Did you do topic tests? So we've got Kahoot. They love this. And they've been using the key terminology: topic tests, Kahoots, discussion, peer assessment, practical projects. Brilliant. Blockit.
Yeah, not heard of that one.
Yeah, haven't heard of Blockit. What sort of format does Blockit use?
I'll have to Google it.
It's like Kahoot, but with little games. Oh, fab.
Oh, nice.
So we have discussion, topic tests, self-peer assessment. Yeah, self-peer assessment, we'll cover that in the next section. But yeah, that's definitely, that used to be one of my favourites when teaching.
And also setting team projects, you know, putting students into design teams so that they can take on, I guess, different roles within that team and responsibilities. That's quite good.
Someone's asking, is Kahoot free? I believe it is free. And we've got discussions, projects, the NCFE booklet, the self and peer assessment, debates.
Mm.
I said, I'm not sure I pay for Kahoot,
Oh.
using booklet more for revision. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure of Kahoot, whether you pay for it or whether you pay for a version. You know how you can get different levels. That's something to look out for. That can be added to the plan do review. Today I will find out if Kahoot has to be paid for. Great, so everyone's already using loads of different ways to do that formative assessment. So someone said, is booklet free? So is it free? I have a standard Kahoot, but not heard of booklet. Is it booklet? Just waiting for the chat.
Mm.
Yes, sure. I'm not sure if it's free. Yeah, it's free. And they prefer booklet as I think it's free, and can also put them in teams, which they're like, oh, that's good. It's good. A bit of classroom competition to get learners motivated.
Mm. Well, it's good practice because, you know, they need to get used to presenting information, you know, presenting their design work, critiquing, giving each other feedback.
Great, thanks everyone. So as we've already sort of covered as well, self and peer assessment, but moving now on to feedback, a powerful method that can address the majority of the AFL 5 key strategies mentioned earlier is live marking. So live marking puts a greater emphasis on verbal dialogue that is scripted and targeted to help pupils improve their work. So this means that pupils can instantly act upon feedback, all the while significantly reducing their marking for yourself, for teachers. So live marking permits the teacher to give the pupil concise, regular feedback that can be acted on immediately. And I'm aware that some of you may be governed by marking policy and understand that for Ofsted purpose, progress is not evidence in this situation, but yellow box marking can overcome this issue, as it's more a targeted approach to marking and ensures teachers and pupils focus on a specific area of work rather than an entire piece. That's encouraged teachers' feedback to be a diagnostic and support improvement, and the area of work is clearly marked, focusing on key points. So a 2020 study found that pupils valued verbal feedback over written feedback, and it was stated that pupils who received verbal feedback perceived the feedback to be better in terms of quality, use and quantity and timing and usefulness compared to pupils who receive written feedback. So it could be, obviously, when we give verbal feedback, it's then not recorded, but it could be that you record the feedback, as in physically record it, so that learners can play back and listen to their feedback. And as we said before, it can also come from peer or self feedback, and that makes feedback instant, immediately actionable, and you get formative feedback, as you will see if there is common errors of content you need to readdress. And the final idea to consider regarding feedback is the idea of repeating content and the intervals between teaching and feedback activities. So linked to the idea of formative assessment, how do you know, but more importantly, how do your pupils know that they've retained new knowledge and understanding on how to retrieve it and use it and apply it across the subject area? So we're now going to do activity 4, and we're going to put theory into practice. So what we're going to do is we're going to share with you a number of formative assessment tasks that can be used and adapted across the qualification, which shows your pupils' current level of understanding and content. So what we'll do is we'll talk through each task in a little more detail over the next few slides. And then what we'd like to do for the final activity is work together across these activities and generate ideas and tasks. So these are all within the Jamboard. And again, these are there for you to revisit. So consider how you could adapt the tasks and how you could use them. So we'll talk you through all the tasks that we've got for formative assessment activities, and then we'll all go on the Jamboard and have a play around with the tasks and get loads of ideas and collaborate together.
Excellent. So I'm going to start having a look at this one, which I'm sure you're all really familiar with, a walkabout bingo. So what we've got here is using some examples from content area 4, planning, development and experimentation. So the simple version is devising a series of questions that you can put into a grid. So we've done this for you here. So for example, give 2 examples in the planning stage of the development process. Student would walk around the classroom and ask their peers 1 question each. So they take their bingo card around the class, they ask the question, hopefully that peer will know the answer, they can record it in the sheet, they put the name down, and basically the first person to have a full bingo card, I guess, wins. So you can award prizes or points, however you want to do that. It also encourages students to actually get up out of their chair and talk to each other. You could obviously do this in pairs as well to speed up the process in mini groups. It's, you know, a basic pro forma which we've provided for you, or which we'll show you on the next slide. You can create your own sets of questions for each of the content areas.
Thanks, Emma.
That's okay. I'll say the next slide is the pro forma, which we'll obviously share with you.
So the next activity that you can do is expand and elaborate. So you provide statements from any of the content areas and you ask your learners to come up with some statements. So this one is an example from content area 5, graphic design production, and content area 6, display, present and promote graphic design work. And by having a but because so allows your pupil to develop the statement in more detail and helps them with that complexity of the question. So when they come to the EA, they're used to sort of doing that long answer question. They have the but, because, and the so. So in the chat, can we add an example of a because? Displaying and promoting graphic design work digitally is better than physically. So what would your learners respond to this? What would their because be? So displaying and promoting graphic design work digitally is better than physically. What would your learners use as their because? So we use the bottom example on the screen. So if you just post in the chat, what example would your learners give for a because? For displaying and promoting graphic design work digitally is better than physically. How would your learners answer that question? Would they state a because? Because it's easy accessible to everyone. Yep. More portable. Yep. The but would it may not suit designers who use texture as a key element or who use physical mediums such paint. Yeah. So yeah, if they're using actual not all graphic designers work digitally, so that would be a but. Great, thank you. So when we go on to the Jamboard, we can add some more. We can add more to these. We've also got, so it can be shared in multiple employers, but your work is not personalized and unique. Got one more type coming through. So the next activity is the thinking and linking grid. So a content area or section of indicative content is chosen and all the keywords terminology associated with it are placed within the spaces in the grid. So this example is for content area 1.1 for components. So what the pupils do is they roll a dice and the number that is rolled identifies the first keyword. So if they rolled a 6, it would be cropping, and then they roll the dice again for second word. And then what they do is make the links between the two in the box. So they have the two boxes and they link between the two words. So the links can be verbal or they can be written links that they can use throughout the lesson. This is a good starter activity, a homework activity, and it can help with that revision and also getting, the terminology that into that long-term memory by doing it through a very active teaching. So we'll revisit this on the Jamboard and we can make the links between the two. And then the last one we've got to show you is the misconception retrieval. So this is one to trick your learners. So this example we've added has common misconceptions, and this is using content area 2, the work of graphic designers, and content area 3, the requirements of a graphic design brief, and then content area 4, planning, development and experimentation. So what your pupils will do is try and provide a correct answer or a better answer through their research, and it will attempt to support the answer with evidence. So what's the misconception and what's a correct or a better answer? And this again is on the Jamboard, which we'll have a go at it. And this again helps your learners with that long answer question, long answer questions in the EA, and also for the annotation within the NEA. So if we all could jump onto the Jamboard, and we'll spend about just under 10 minutes having a go at some of these activities. And if there's any activity you'd particularly like to do together, do you want to post in the chat, or do we want to just have a go? So it could be that you want to put words into the thinking and linking grid.
We've got post-it already. Well done. That's great.
Great. It might be that we want to, so we've got the misconception. Sketches have to look good first time. Yeah, that's really, that's definitely a learner thing. I remember my learners throwing their sketches in the bin because they were like, it's not good. Doesn't look good first time, and me getting the work out the bin saying it's evidence, it shows development. Yeah, absolutely not. If there's anything we want to work through. Not great ideas. Yeah, I wish learners could believe that.
And again, that's a great quick fire lesson starter, isn't it? Asking students to, I don't know, draw something in lots of different media very, very quickly. 1 minute, 2 minute sketches. They hate it, but it's good for loosening up and starting to break down those preconceived ideas about drawing, and drawing has to look a particular way.
I love that. Throw your rubber away. Yeah, definitely. I think I actually remove rubbers from some lessons. This is a starting point to develop an experiment. This is good starting point, but not an end point. Yeah, great. Great. I'll have a look through the other Jamboards if anyone's had a go at the book because so. But again, this Jamboard is for you as a group to work together after the session, that you can post things, use this as a tool between you. Try sketching in pen. Yeah, learners do love a pencil, don't they?
Oh yeah. Throw away the
I like that.
pencils.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. You can't be a graphic designer if you're colourblind. Yeah, that's a good misconception, definitely.
Mm.
So all these activities are here for you to use. Just give everyone a few more minutes to have a look through before we go over resources and support, and then we can have questions at the further questions at the end. Try sketching with the opposite hand, with opposite right hand. Yeah, that's a really good activity. I've got a really good idea already, so don't need to come up with any more.
How
I
many
remember
times
that
have we
one.
heard
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
I know what I'm doing
I've
for my
got my
final
idea.
outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We'd be rich, wouldn't we, if we had £1 for every time we've heard that? Start
Also,
of a project. Yeah,
yeah.
start of a project. I've got my idea. Oh, so the focus on don't need to do any design development.
What have you missed? Yeah. I used to like doing the sketching, not only with the opposite hand, but with your eyes closed as well. That was always one that had the class laughing.
Yep. Mm. Yeah, lack of experimentation, that is restricting in terms of obtaining marks for experimentation and idea development. And obviously, the more you as a teacher say it, the students don't listen. So it's where you can get the support from your guest speakers to really hone in on that. That's quite handy.
Great, thanks everyone. So we'll move on to resources so that we have enough time for questions at the end. But as I keep saying, you know, use this Jamboard as a tool together. So in the last section of this session, we're going to go through resources and support. So we have our NCFE website, and within the VCERT page, this is where you'll find information about why to choose VCERTs for the 14 to 16 schools brochure, and that contains information about Key Stage 4 vocational education and how to learn more about the VCERT qualifications. Within this, you'll also find links to each subject page, and this contains information such as a specification, sample assessment materials, and teacher materials. There's also our parent support and pupil visa information hub within this page, and that'll come in handy for you know, your parents' evening nights or careers nights. And on both pages, you can use the get in touch function where you can request more information on the subject. And there's also an opportunity to tick the marketing communication box. And that's where you'll receive the updates of our qualification events and news relevant to you via email or phone or through social media channels.
And following on from what Beth has just been showing you there is we've now integrated our Qual Hub into NCFE. Both were two separate websites. Now you can access them in one, which is great. And as you can see from the slide, it's much easier. You've got the tabs on the right hand side divided into Qual details, support materials, assessment materials, teaching materials, and so on. So if you click on one of those tabs, you'll be able to access a range of different resources there. You can also search our qualifications by subject area or qualification code or via VCERT. So hopefully that's more intuitive for you to be using. What have I missed there? Obviously, the qual spec is on that as well. And again, referring to the portal user guide for further support should you wish to. There's also a series of on-demand webinars. So, for example, this one will be recorded and you'll be able to access that. And there's also a vCert playlist on our YouTube channel where you can access different resources, webinars, CPD sessions, upcoming training events, and so on. And you can access those on demand to suit you.
Great, thanks, Emma.
No probs.
So once you registered your pupils and you approved to deliver the qualification, you'll be contacted by the provider development team as part of your onboarding process, which I know some of you already have been contacted by me and we've had calls. But for those of you who are new to vCerts, so this service is really tailored to individual needs of the centre to ensure requirements are met. So the provider development team supports staff to ensure you're prepared to teach the qualification and that you're clear on all the requirements for the delivery and assessment of the qualification. And there's also regular CPD sessions throughout the year, and these may be live like this one, the Prep to Teach, or they could be recorded for those key assessment times to make sure you're on track and feeling confident. And we also offer a range of support as you can see from the slide. Other support that's available includes our wonderful customer service team, and they can help support with first line inquiries, registration inquiries, bookings using the portal. So you can contact them via telephone or email. And there's also a vCert email for questions that you have related to the vCert qualification. So in the last section, we're going to take an opportunity to reflect on what your key takeaway is from the day. And you can also have a look at the next steps for further opportunities to ask any questions you may have. So as we're coming to the end of the session, it's time to reflect. So we've got a few areas to cover. So you can go back to your plan, do review in your workbook, what you'd like to do. Also go back to your workbook and revisit your KWL. So what have you learned? Highlight a few key points that you've learned from the session. Is there anything you've learned? I've learned about, is it Blooklet, and learned about that. And also look back at your W. Did you cover the bits you wanted to learn? So if you revisit them. And on the last slide, reflection. So what are your key takeaways? What impact will it have? What will you do next? And how will this benefit impact your learners? So if you could add some things to the Jamboard, and then after the session, add to your plan, do review, your workbook, and add to your KWL. So your key takeaways, and this is on slide 15. Interweaving the content areas. Great. Make delivering the course more manageable. Yep, definitely. Make teaching more manageable. Busy enough. Inspire and motivate students more. Yep. Get planning.
I like that one.
Yeah, it's that time of year, isn't it?
Yeah, takes a little bit of time to get your guest speakers, but absolutely so valuable, and to book them in various different content areas. Yeah, that's a great idea to start now. Yeah, fun ways.
Find fun ways. Yep, definitely.
And remember, it's not all about your delivery, get the students involved as well, so they can be finding graphic design companies in the local area and giving you the names.
We've got to relook how I can plan the overall course. Continue to plan recall tasks and link into keywords, literacy tasks for the NEA and the EA key terms. Yep. Great. Brilliant. So again, keep adding to this Jamboard. This is for you to use as a group. We're also on the slide here, and we'll post it in the chat. We have a Google's form, a Microsoft form, and a QR code to give us feedbacks. So we'd really appreciate if you could complete the short evaluation, because it helps us to make future improvements and, the service and support that we provide for you. Brilliant, thanks. Right, so we're going to go back to our poll now. I'll just launch the poll and let's see how confident we're feeling now. I'll just launch that. Got some 5 to 6s, so I'm hoping the people who are lower down have got up to 5 to 6. We've got some 7 to 8s. Okay, I think we've had everyone's responses. I'll just close the poll. So I hope that you're feeling more confident, and it's, your confidence level has gone up. Good. So now what we'll do is we'll stop the recording and answer any questions. I think there's a few questions that have come up in the chat. But for those of you who don't have any questions, thank you very much, for attending, and, have a continued successful year. And for those of you who are going to start delivering the VCerts, a up and coming successful start to your year. So I'll stop the recording now, and then we'll be here to answer any questions and respond to questions in the chat as well. But thank you everyone for attending.